Good morning. Happy Father's Day and welcome to the Media Center here at the Office of the Prime Minister in Kingston, Jamaica. I'm Naomi Francis. Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, has called a media briefing to update the nation on some very important matters. Ahead of the Prime Minister speaking, may I ask everyone at the Media Center to stand and all over social media for the national anthem of Jamaica. Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister of Jamaica.
Good morning, everyone, and happy Father's Day. I wish for love and peace in all households across Jamaica as we today acknowledge the work and the love and the guidance and care that our fathers have given to this nation. As of today, I, as Prime Minister in Council, that is to say, as Chairman of the National Security Council, acting on the advice of the security forces, have officially declared a zone of special security and community development operations under the Law Reform Zones of Special Operations, Special Security and Community Development Measures Act 2017. The Law Reform Zones of Special Operations, Special Security and Community Development Measures, Norwood Community in the Parish of St. James Zone, Order 2021, has been gazetted. And I hold up the gazette for all to see. This law, under which the zones are declared, was created for upholding and preserving the rule of law, public order, citizen security, and public safety within certain geographically defined areas of Jamaica. The law allows for a coherent strategy utilizing interministerial and interagency coordination towards social transformation with the aim that the people gain confidence in the security forces and trust the justice system so that a new culture of peace can emerge in a self-sustaining and permanent way. Ultimately, residents will own the peace, own the changes, and take responsibility for their transformed community. We have seen the implementation of the Clear, Hold, Build strategy, and it has worked. We are examining what has worked best in the model, and we are currently reviewing the legislation to improve functionality and deployment. The government of Jamaica continues to leverage this approach as a platform for developing and refining practices that promise enduring positive results in improving citizen security and quality of life. An analysis of the situation in the Norwood community within the parish of St. James and within the St. James Police Division has revealed that the community continues to be characterized by increased gang-related violence and criminal activities. The Zozo in Mount Salem, in the Mount Salem Police Division, has been in place since September 1, 2017. Norwood community, for the new zone of special operations, this is an area of approximately 1 square kilometer. It has about 11,800 residents. We have estimated that approximately 1,600 of those are males between 14 and 29. There are about 5,200 building structures in that community. The community is generally considered to have emerged in an unplanned way. It has issues such as lack of water, but the housing structures are generally of good stock and construction of concrete, and it houses workers mainly in the tourism sector. But you can see that in an area of approximately 1 square kilometer with over 11,000 persons living there with unplanned infrastructure, that there could be the levels of crime and violence that we are experiencing in those areas. In fact, since the beginning of the year, 15 murders and 14 shootings have occurred. Since 2019, within that community, there has been recorded 66 murders. But more disturbingly, there are 6 gangs known to be operating within that very small space. And those gangs, though they are based in that area, operate all over St. James. So the Zozo will target this area and will bring some peace to the community, but it will give an opportunity for that community to turn a new leaf in its existence. The overall intention in declaring an additional community in St. James as a zone of special operation is to ensure that we can deliver social interventions leading to an improved living condition and quality of life for the citizens in that area, and to reduce the exposure of our children to various behaviors and the exposure of violence in the area, which is self-sustaining in the creation of the problems that we are experiencing in that area. So, in accordance with the written recommendations of the Chief of Defense Staff and the Commissioner of Police, I have designated Lieutenant Colonel Champlini Henry of the JDF and Mr. Vernon Ellis, Superintendent of Police of the JCF, to be jointly in charge of operations within the new zone of special operations that we have just declared for Norwood. I will now invite the Commissioner of Police to give further details on the zone.
Thank you, Prime Minister. So, Most Honourable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, Honourable Dr. Horace Chang, Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of National Security, Attorney General, and Commodore Antoinette Weems-Gorman, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. The community of Norwood both impacts and is impacted by what is taking place around it. Since the start of the year, 79 murders have been recorded in the St. James Division. That's an increase of 28 or 55% when compared to where we were at this time in 2020. Norwood falls in the Montego Hills policing area of the St. James Division, and this area accounts for the highest proportion of both murders and shootings in the parish. To date, as the Prime Minister said, there have been 15 murders and 14 shootings in that area. But our investigations have shown that there are other murders and shootings that take place outside of the designated area that are caused by the gangs that operate, the 6 gangs that operate in the Norwood area. Now, as the Prime Minister said, there have been 66 murders since 2019 in this area, and they have targeted each other, as well as family, friends, and other close associates of gang members. And as a result, the conflict has been prolonged. The main sources of funding for these gangs are from lottery scamming, contract killings, extortion, and robberies. They also receive funds from members who have migrated. And in some sections of the community, the gang members have the support of their family and other citizens. This support, which sometimes arises from fear, and continued funding significantly contributes to the viability of these gangs. We believe we can loosen the grip of the gangs on this community through policing activities which target the gangs, their resources, and their allies, while employing a clear hold build strategy to create this space for long-term developmental strategies. We police these communities every day, and we are well aware that there are men, women, and children who desperately need for us to build strong, legitimate social structures that will keep the gangs and gangsters out of their neighborhoods. We believe that this rampant violence in the community requires a sustained intervention, not only to disrupt the current gang activities and violent crimes, but to create a safer space for various government agencies and civil society to employ measures geared towards social development. As such, in consultation with the Chief of Defence Staff, we requested a zone of special operation be declared in the Norwood community. As has been demonstrated through previous and current zones, this enhanced security measure has been very effective in not just reducing violent crimes, but also in establishing long-lasting peace and stability. Since the Mount Salem community in St. James and Denontown community in Kingston West were declared zones of special operations, violent crimes have significantly reduced within the boundaries of these communities. The communities where zones have been introduced continue to benefit from significant infrastructural and social development. As a joint force, we will continue our law enforcement efforts to remove illegal weapons, arrest wanted persons, and bring to justice breakers of the law. We will carry out our duties with the highest level of respect for the fundamental human rights of all citizens, as we continue to build sustained partnerships and trust with the community. Additionally, we will establish and maintain a period of low violent crime in the volatile community and normalize the community and provide safety for the residents. We will dismantle and arrest members of criminal gangs and deny them the opportunity to commit violent crimes. We will disrupt criminal enterprise and provide the opportunity for greater investigative focus on perpetrators of violent crimes and their facilitators. As we achieve these goals on the national security front, we are confident that this will create the space that our partners on the social security front so desperately need to breathe new life into this community and build long-term positive structures. As such, we need the support and cooperation of the residents and persons doing business in or transiting the declared areas, and indeed all Jamaicans. There may be some delays to the motoring public and inconvenience. We ask for your patience and understanding. The public can assist by contacting Crime Stop at 311 if they have information, or by contacting the St. James Police, by complying with the requests of the security officers at checkpoints, by adhering to curfew guidelines, and by notifying the JCF of any breaches of professional conduct by members at our iProbe number, which is 876-838-3084. The JCF remains committed to showing respect for all, observing the rule of law, and we remain a force for good. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. We will now invite Commodore Wims Gorman of the JDF to give us an overview of the geographic location, boundaries and definition of the Norwood Zone of Special Operations. Commodore.
Prime Minister, the Honourable Andrew Holness, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security, Honourable Horace Chang, the Attorney General, Honourable Marlene Malahoo Fort, Commissioner of Police, Major General Anthony Anderson, citizens of Jamaica, members of the press, good morning. The details that were presented before by the Prime Minister and the Police Commissioner have directly influenced the continued occurrence of violent crime in the parish. And the recommendation for these measures is to enhance the security forces, enable the security forces to set the conditions for lasting peace through effective social and community development initiatives. Consequently, early this morning, the JDF and the JCF deployed to sections of the community of Norwood to begin preparation for a zone of special operations. And the description of the boundaries are as follows. To the north, beginning at the intersection of Norwood Highway and Norwood Boulevard, the boundary extends in an easterly direction along Norwood Highway to the intersection of Morning Glory Crescent. To the east, the boundary extends southerly along Morning Glory Crescent and then onto Pimento Drive to the intersection with the 5th Avenue, then southerly along an imaginary line for approximately 0.7 kilometer, denoted by a water feature in the area. To the south, continuing from the point in the vicinity of the water feature, the boundary extends westerly for approximately 0.5 kilometer to the One-Way Tabernacle Early Childhood Institution, then northerly for approximately 0.03 kilometer onto Robert Reed Drive. It then continues north along Charles Drive for approximately 0.3 kilometer and continues in a northwesterly direction along an unnamed road for approximately 0.4 kilometer to the Hendon Main Road. The boundary then continues westerly along the roadway for approximately 0.2 kilometer. And finally, to the west, it extends in another direction along the Hendon Norwood Main Road and then onto Norwood Main Road or Top Road, and continuing north onto the Norwood Highway to the start point at the intersection of Norwood Highway and Norwood Boulevard. We want to once again reassure citizens that all members of the JDF and the JCF who will be working in the zone of special operations have been appropriately trained, giving due regard to the protection of basic human rights, as well as the unique requirements for the ZOZO legislation. We also urge persons to acquaint themselves with these regulations and requirements in order to easily and conveniently transit in the area as they go about their lawful business. We implore them also to comply with the instructions of the security forces as we carry out our operations to remove criminal elements from the area and set the conditions for urgent social intervention measures to be put in place. We are also seeking the cooperation and support of all Jamaicans and urge persons to use one of the available tip lines to report gang and other criminal activity in their communities. In addition to those mentioned by the Commissioner of Police, you can also call the JDF tip line at 876-837-8888. Community support is a key component for the success of this operation. Let me assure the citizens of Jamaica that the JDF and the JCF are committed to bringing an enduring peace to Norwood and all of Jamaica. We welcome the continued support that we have received from citizens and other groups as we go about our mission to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you, Commodore. I'm going to now invite the Minister of National Security, Dr. Horace Chang, to give a brief policy overview on the zones of special operations.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister, my colleague, Attorney General, Commissioner, Police, Major General Anthony Anderson, Chief of Staff, Representative Chief of Staff, Commodore Anthony Williams Gorman, Permanent Secretary Cyril. It's appropriate to remind the country this morning that the overall policy of the government is to have effective and strong policing associated with transformative social investment in the critical communities across the island. The zone of special operation is, of course, a piece of legislation brought in to focus on specific areas that may at times be experiencing increased criminal activity at any point in time and serves as a nexus for wider activity within the community. This morning, the Prime Minister, with the advice of the chiefs, have in fact declared an area in Norwood. I should point out that Norwood, the area declared, is the center of an area of roughly 14,000 houses which were built on an informal basis. The particular involved about 5,000 of these homes. But to the west of Norwood is an area of Providence and Flanker, just to the south areas of Glendevon, of course, going further east, the area of Salt Spring. Well-known areas to the security personnel in this room and to those who are listening. The center, of course, will provide the central area identified. We have been having a spike since the beginning of January, as outlined by the Prime Minister in his presentation. And the zones of special are introduced to restore public safety and good order in the very short term and provide a foundation which we can initiate the kind of social investment required to effect the transformation that we need. It's a peculiar community because, I know well, many of our very successful young people are from the area. But on the other hand, we have some of the leadership of the criminal network emerging from this area, and the objective is to get in there and control their activity and ensure that the population can move around not only in order but safely. That is a critical issue of dealing with. The area lends itself, of course, an area central to a very wide informal area, to the kind of activity that the zones of special operation is planned for and is designed to restore the kind of not only public order but lay the foundation for long-term development. Indeed, we noticed that in our planning, and has been articulated already and announced, on the very border of this to the east is where we look forward to establish the Newmont Western facility for the police force as a central point of operation to ensure we can have continuous and sustainable effective policing. Yet on the just north of it side, the plan is to establish one of our new STEM schools because that area has a high number of successful young members of the population who are interested in pursuing further education. The zones of special operation there in this area is welcome, and I am confident we'll bring about the kind of restoration of public order and continue the process of development that is required to ensure transformative effect in the area.
We have with us as well the Attorney General, and I'm going to lay hands upon her. She wasn't on the speaking order. But just briefly to give an update on the legislative work that is going on behind the scenes to improve the zones of special operations.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Deputy Prime Minister, Commissioner, Acting Chief of Defence Staff. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Zones of Special Operation Law, the ZOZO law reform, Zones of Special Operation, Special Security and Community Development measures is now undergoing its final stages of review before a joint select committee of the Parliament. I'm pleased to say that we have had numerous comments. The suggestions have been rigorously debated, and we are now at the stage of looking at what will go into the final report to the Parliament. We anticipate that we will be dividing the security side of the law from the community development side of the law, and it is our intention to insert the enhanced security measures in the security side. The next meeting of the committee is scheduled for later this week. The law has worked well. We have taken the opportunity to review where measures need to be strengthened. We're looking at the suite of police powers and powers to the JDF, that is the joint force. And I believe from all indications, the law will emerge better and better equipped to handle the security and community development measures. I think, Prime Minister, in due course, you will get your brief in respect of the enhanced security side, and the DPM, who chairs the Joint Select Committee, will present the report to the Parliament, which we intend to debate in very short order. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney General. I believe we have given a comprehensive overview declaring the Norwood Zone of Special Operations. And now we are open to your questions.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. I see several members of the media on our Zoom platform already. May I ask that you use the raise hand feature so we'll be able to call on you and you'll be able to ask your questions directly to the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, and of course the chiefs of the security forces. Already the Gleaner, the TVJ, IRI FM, Nationwide are all on. May I also welcome those joining us live on radio, on Nationwide 90 FM and on RJR 94 FM live, as well as those via our streams. Our first question comes from Ms. Dion Jackson-Miller, TVJ. Dion, good morning. Is Dion up as yet? Dion, good morning. I see your hand.
Unmute your mic, Dion.
Let's try again, and I think Dion is trying to say Happy Father's Day too. All right, could you do another voice check for?
Unmute.
All right, hold on.
No, thank you
there
so
you
much,
go.
Mr.
Wonderful.
Prime Minister. It was your host. It was your host that was not allowed.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Given the problems there have been over the past couple of days, I'd like to ask if the government is reviewing its use of logistics personnel to plan the distribution of the vaccine, given the problems that we've been seeing. The second question I have is that I received information from two sources, one in the distribution sector and one in the healthcare sector, that shipments or small shipments of Moderna and or Pfizer came into the country very quietly and were just as quietly distributed without being made public. Can you please comment on that, sir? And third, persons who have students going overseas are concerned about not getting their dose and not therefore being able to matriculate into colleges. Can you give people any kind of assurance in terms of the second dose of the vaccines?
Thank you, Dion, and I take it that you're quite fine. Everything is clear about the Norwood Zone of Special Operations.
Yes, Mr. Prime Minister, thank you.
Thank you for the questions that you have asked, Dion. I'm not aware of doses of Moderna or any other vaccines other than AstraZeneca coming into Jamaica. This is not to say that it could not have happened. I am just not aware of that, and I am certainly not aware of it being coming through the official and formal channels of the government. It is something that is worthy of an inquiry and an investigation, and I will take that up in the morning at Cabinet when we meet. In terms of using logistics experts, the government of Jamaica has pulled together all our logistics capabilities to support the Ministry of Health, and the Ministry of Health does have some logistics capabilities as well. To my best recollection, in the planning of the initial stages of the vaccination blitz programs and the regular vaccination programs, the Ministry of National Security and the Jamaica Defence Force, those resources were brought on board, along with the resources of the Ministry of Health. Now, you will acknowledge that the Ministry of Health has been doing vaccinations in Jamaica now for going 50 years. So they do have a residual capacity, expert capacity actually, in that area. What happened yesterday, I've taken note of it. I've spoken to the minister. He has given me a verbal brief, which at Cabinet tomorrow, we will get a written update as to what happened. My understanding, however, is that in various locations right across Jamaica, the vaccination program went according to plan. But in a few areas, more persons turned up than we had initially anticipated. That is a good thing. I'm happy to see people come out for their vaccines. Now, Dion, you'll recall that from day one, I tried to set the example. Take the vaccine when it is your turn. Otherwise, it could be chaotic. We have been upfront with the public to say we are running low on vaccines, and I think by now everybody would understand that the nature of global vaccine politics and vaccine supply is such that small island states like Jamaica, developing countries like Jamaica, would have challenges in getting the vaccine. But we are working overtime, and I'm sure the Minister of Health and the Minister of Foreign Affairs will shortly bring good news to the country about supplies. So persons who have legitimate concerns about, for example, as you raised, they are not being able to matriculate because they would not be able to show that they're fully immunized, that those fears will shortly be allayed.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. Let's move on to Mr. William Mitchell of Nationwide Radio. William, good morning.
Hi, good morning, all. I apologize for not turning on the camera. You know, COVID and grooming, it's not what it used to be. But regarding the declaration of the enhanced security measure in St. James, well, not so much St. James, but, you know, a lot of people are asking, me, myself included, with the escalation of killings in central Kingston and certain other parts of the country. Why not an enhanced security measure in central Kingston, whether it be a ZOZO or a state of emergency?
Very good question, Mr. Mitchell. Firstly, let me say that I am also of the view that the people of central Kingston deserve the attention of the government in the form of whether it be a zone of special operation or a state of public emergency. Let's start with the state of public emergency. That measure is not available to the government at this point in time. I wrestle with this because I see the need for it. I see where people are suffering and the measure could offer immediate relief. But we must ensure that whenever we deploy such powers, they are in keeping with the constitutional arrangements, which are so important to preserve the rights and peace of the Jamaican state. And the government has to ensure that we are in keeping with the law. So that measure is not available to us. Now, you would know from the zones of special operations law itself and how we have deployed that this is not something that the ZOZO is not a tool that we use in a knee-jerk way. It takes really months of planning. Dion mentioned the use of logistics planners. To put in place a zone of special operation requires very intensive logistics planning and resource preparation and allocation. And what you're seeing declared today would have been a decision that was taken several months ago, planning done, and you are seeing its seamless rendition. The zone would have gone into effect today. The forces would have moved in place. The command would have taken charge already. And already, my understanding, Commissioner, that some results have been achieved from an operational perspective.
We're still in the process of search.
Yes. So we can't use the Zozo as a kind of knee-jerk immediate response. The zones of special operation should be considered as a long-term peace building and community development tool. And we now have 5 zones of special operations. We are building capacity, we are getting greater know-how, and we will soon be able to scale up. We have targeted 20 communities, of which communities in central Kingston are included. So it may not be today, but somewhere down the road, some of those communities in central Kingston will be declared. So I would say to the citizens, I understand your distress, and we are working to bring long-term peace to your community. However, in the interim, we have mobilized other measures within the toolbox of measures that we have, which has been severely hampered by not having the states of public emergency measure. And I'll invite the Commissioner to just give an update as to the resource mobilization and measures that we have put in place to address the immediate problems in central Kingston. Commissioner.
Thank you, Prime Minister. So the challenge we are facing in Kingston is not just in central Kingston or in the Parade Gardens area. It extends over into what is the East Kingston Police Division, and over on the western side into Western Kingston onwards to the St. Andrew South Police Divisions. So we have seen a flare-up of gang activity across the divisions, and including, but also a concentration in Parade Garden, Central Kingston. We toured there on Friday, and what you saw was a community with violence fatigue, a community that really wants to stop the violence that is occurring. And communities end up with this violence fatigue when both the perpetrators of violence and the people being killed know each other, live in the same community, grew up together, went to the same schools. So that's happening within the communities, but also from neighboring communities, there are gang conflicts that are playing out. Unfortunately, so many of our young people get into the gangs early, and then even friends now become enemies over gang issues. Now, normally when you have this fatigue, things start to calm down after a certain amount of time when the community has had enough and are willing to work with the police, and we are seeing that now. There are a series of operations and strategies that we're using. We've mobilized extra support from the Jamaica Defence Force, and also we have repositioned some of our own resources to hold some space where to deny the gangs the freedom of movement that they perhaps previously had. We're also directly targeting those gang members to get them into custody, and also the people who are supporting them abroad through and with our partners. We're also targeting with our partners, local partners, their resources. So there are a series of police operations and activities that are taking place to bring back peace to the community. What the community should be seeing is far more actual police and soldiers there, but that's not the extent of the operations. We also, in Kingston, in central Kingston, just recently we've arrested 8 of the main gang players. We have recovered a number of firearms, some 9-10 firearms in the last few weeks, and over 100 rounds of ammunition in that time. So we are in there. We're going to continue our work. We're working with the community to alleviate this issue as soon as possible. But we're doing that in Kingston Central, in Kingston East, in Kingston West, and across in St. Andrews South. So that southern crescent from Doheny Park back to Bull Bay has a number of flares, and we are dealing with all of them in the best way we can.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Prime Minister, more questions for you. I acknowledge Mr. Giovanni Dennis from TVJ. Giovanni, good morning and happy Father's Day.
Thank you so much, Naomi. I just want to ask the Prime Minister and the head of the police and the military, if possible, if there's a renewed drive to sort of give in Norwood this time, because we're certainly seeing in some of the ones that we've had in Kingston, certainly near the checkpoints, several shootings, murders as well. I can think certainly a few times in the Maxfield area near where our workplace is at TVJ. We've heard several shootings. There's also recently in the Denham Town area shootings, multiple shootings near the checkpoints. And so there seems to be a lack of teeth, a lack of effectiveness of the zones of special operations, given the active shootings and crime that we're seeing still within the zones. And I just wanted to ask, what are we doing to kind of give it that teeth that it had initially when it just came out a few years ago?
I understand what you're asking, but some of the characterizations may not be accurate. Generally, within the zones, there is full maintenance of law and order. There have been a few incidents, not many. But remember now that the zone is geographically defined, and so the standard and practice of the operations are really focused within the zone. This is not to say that the zone does not have an external effect, and indeed it does. And I will invite the Commissioner to further explain and clarify how the zones work.
Thank you, Giovanni. So, yes, there have been some shootings near to the zone. I know what you're talking about on the Maxfield Avenue area. We are shifting our strategies around that as the gang adapts to it. As you're probably aware that in a number of these conflicts that are in nearby zones, the people who are actually doing the killing and the people being killed live side by side and know each other. So they know their routines, they know where they go. And when that desire to kill someone comes over them, they will find ways of doing it. Our interventions, for the most part, seek to bring that down and reduce it, and in every place that we've had a zone, we've had a reduction. Anything from, at the lowest end, a 35% reduction, up to the high end of an 89% reduction in murders and shootings within the zone. Now, outside, around the zone, and this was why having a zone as that area of development within a wider area that you have under the control of a state of public emergency is the best of all worlds in terms of pacifying and reducing murders and shootings. Now, as I say, that is off the table, but we have adapted and adopted new strategies that allow us to get not the same effect, but as close as possible to that effect from more deployments of the military and the police and better intelligence to target those specific gangs and conflicts that are playing out in those spaces. Of course, we have to be very agile and fluid. We do not have the resources to be everywhere at the same time. And so the intelligence is driving a lot of what we're doing. And we are putting a number of these gang members, as soon as these murders occur, behind bars. We have a lot of them in custody at the moment, but there's quite a high supply of them as well. So we'll continue targeting them, we'll continue putting them behind bars, and we will see the reduction in murders and killings around these zones as well.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. I acknowledge Mr. Andre Wright, editor at The Gleaner. Andre, good morning.
Hi. For the Prime Minister, I'd like to know, with murders up about 3% this year, has the government permanently parked the option of states of emergency until the court appeal is resolved? That's one. And two, the transport minister has been noticeably silent on the entry of Uber to the market. There seems to be a lot of confusion. What level of discussions are underway within the government, including the Attorney General, in terms of reviewing whatever laws there are in place and whether there are any breaches or whether Uber's entry is fully operational and acceptable to the Jamaican government?
Let me start with the Uber question. I'm not going to turn to the Attorney General and put her on the spot again, but no, on Monday morning, that will be a major topic for discussion in the Cabinet. Coming out of that, you will hear a statement as to the government's position. As it relates to your other question, another good question about the SOEs, is the government totally abandoning the SOE? Let me be very clear to all Jamaicans listening. If there occurs a situation in which we clearly see that there is a threat to life, community, and property that rises to the level that satisfies the constitutional requirements, we will declare a state of public emergency. The issue is whether or not we can continue to extend it and sustain it. But the declaration of one still remains an option for the government. We have never closed that option. The government, however, is exploring, as the Attorney General would have pointed out in her statement, putting in place a better scheme of arrangements that are clarified and clearer in keeping with the Constitution of Jamaica. And that is what we call the ESMA, the Emergency Security Measures. And that is in the development process. It will get before Parliament. And I believe that once that is in place, then the police will have a tool that is defined and fit for the purpose that we wanted. Before your colleague Giovanni raised the issue of shock and awe, there is an element of the Jamaican Public Commissioner and Minister that would want to see the government use a hammer on these criminals. And understandably so, when you read the newspaper and you see the gruesomeness, the brutality, the inhumanity, thank you for that word, AG, of some of the crimes, the brazenness of some of the crimes committed. And the public sits by wondering, why are we splitting ears? Why are we so hesitant? Why don't we just go there and get them? Of course, that sets up the government for another problem and exposes our police officers to legal problems for the violation of human rights. So this government is very sensitive to any criticism, locally or internationally, about it abusing the rights of its citizens. And whatever we have structured, we have tried to do it in such a way that we preserve the right, especially the right to life of the citizen, because it is not just in enforcement, it is more so in getting the society to change its perspective on the preservation of life. And so we have to lead by example. So the zone of special operation is not designed to be a shock and awe tool. It is designed to preserve life, the life of the citizen, and yes, the life of the criminal. It is designed to give the community space in which they can peacefully resolve conflicts. And it is designed to create a system of law and order in public spaces within the community. It is designed to build peace within the community and to give space for the government to intervene with proper infrastructure and access to social amenities. And that is what you would have seen in all zones that have been declared across the country. We would have loved to do 20 zones all at once. You know, the country would recall the cries of the residents in Augustown. You don't hear that anymore. The cries of the residents in Mount Salem. You don't hear that anymore, because we are taking a systematic and well thought out approach to building peace. We will get to the top 20 communities and we will bring peace to them, and it will result in a long-term reduction of homicides in Jamaica.
Prime Minister, thank you so much. I see no new hand, and I do acknowledge the fact that Mrs. Jackson-Miller has a follow-up, so we'll take Mrs. Dion Jackson-Miller, and then we'll close.
Thank you so much, Naomi. Following up on Andre's question in relation to the state of emergency, because the gravamen of that case really was the issue of indefinite detention on the order of a member of the executive breaching the separation of powers doctrine. So taking your the Prime Minister's statement that if needs be, the government would declare a state of emergency, but would it be fair to say, Mr. Prime Minister, that certainly until that court case is resolved, that we would not be seeing detention orders by members of the executive leading to
I'm sorry,
detention?
Dion, I lost you a little bit there. If you could, I'm sorry, Dion, I lost you a little bit. Could you repeat the question?
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm so sorry, Mr. Prime Minister. Is that a little bit better?
Yes, I'm hearing you a little better now.
Okay, thank you so much. I was following up on Andre's question and saying really in the case that he's speaking of, the major issue was, or one of the primary issues was the use of detention orders by a member of the executive and indefinite detention of people as a result. So even though you say that if needs be, the government will still use a state of emergency as a crime fighting measure, would it be fair to say that certainly until the Court of Appeal has ruled that we would not be seeing these detention orders used in that way? That's my first question. My second question for Mr. Commissioner, I'm asking whether or not in relation to the Jamaicans that arrived by boat in the United States the other day, whether it's something the police are looking at, whether they have an interest in that situation and doing an investigation or follow-up. And thirdly, just complimenting Madame AG on her beautiful outfit, but just asking the Prime Minister at the same time if he's aware that some women continue to have problems in terms of wearing sleeveless outfits into some government offices, and do you think you need to strengthen the policy or whatever the edict has been that is supposed to prevent that?
I'm going to allow the competent person to answer both questions. But I'll just repeat my point, Leon. The state of public emergency is provided for within the Constitution to give the government exceptional powers to respond to exceptional circumstances. And those circumstances could be a threat to life that would come by virtue of a criminal act, a terrorist act, or a weather event. So my answer to the question is the government stands prepared to use the constitutionally provided for powers. There might need to be greater clarity and greater precision, and we are working for that in the ESMA. And I will ask the AG to answer your other question and this question as well.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Mrs. Jackson-Miller needs to know that you are a progressive Prime Minister and a progressive gentleman, so you do understand that rules relating to dress must be relevant climatically and otherwise. Dion, I think Prime Minister indicated some time ago, along with Minister Grange, that the rules in relation to sleeveless had changed. But of course, persons must dress appropriately for context. In relation to the state of emergency, let me just clarify that in Jamaica, there is no law which allows for indefinite detention. Not the SOE, not anything else. When that came in under the Gun Court Act many years ago, the matter went all the way to the Privy Council and it was clarified. So for those who are saying repeatedly that whether the SOE or any other law in Jamaica permits indefinite detention, it is not so. In Jamaica, the executive is allowed to engage the right which guarantees liberty. The detention order that is issued by the Minister of National Security when a state of public emergency is declared does not say indefinite detention. There is a mechanism for review, and after the detention order is issued, persons who challenge the basis on which they are detained are allowed to bring their matter before the tribunal, the emergency tribunal that is set up constitutionally. And at the maximum, the detention is to the duration of the state of public emergency. An extremely important distinction that persons should understand. We are of the view that exciting questions of constitutional law and procedural law and administrative law arise in the cases that are now before the court. I bemoan the fact that we are awaiting the transcript, even though we have signaled that we would like the matter to be considered expeditiously, given the criticality of the measure to the state and what is happening in Jamaica. But we look forward to getting the guidance of the court. We look forward to presenting our perspective of the law in keeping with our understanding of the Charter and, of course, the imperatives of the state and of governance. So what I really want to say is that it is my hope that the transcript will be prepared soonest so that we can have the matter heard. We have signaled that we want it to be heard expeditiously. Thank you.
Thank you, AG. Then
Thank you, AG.
Yes.
And of course, Diana had asked another question about persons who had illegally entered the United States and claimed that they are fleeing Jamaica for various reasons. I hope that the Commissioner will be able to explain and expose those persons.
Okay, thanks, Dion. I think so. 7 persons were on that boat. 7 Jamaicans. There were more than 7 persons, but 7 of the persons on the boat were Jamaicans. We have been working with our international partners on this, and have found criminal traces for 4 of them, 4 of the 7 so far. And only a couple of weeks before that, we know that another person who was wanted in Jamaica was tried to enter the United States in a similar way, but was found and sent back to us. So we constantly work with our partners on this, and that is the update on those who were taken up there. We know who they are, and as I said, 4 so far, we have found criminal traces on our system for them.
Thank you, Commissioner. Prime Minister, it's Father's Day, and I see two fathers in the group just quickly put their hand up immediately as I gave the follow-up. Would you be kind enough to, though it's Father's Day and you have to go do your Father's Day duty, accommodate?
I did that early this morning, but I have other duties as well. So.
All right, so let's just ask then Roxroy McLean. Roxroy, let's acknowledge you and then we'll close out. Could you state your media entity, please, Roxroy?
Hi, good morning, Prime Minister. Good morning to everybody. I'm Roxanne McLean, I'm with the Jamaica Star. The question I have is for Police Commissioner Major General Anthony Anderson. Mr. Anderson, have the police made any headway in the shooting of the Franklin Town police station?
Yes, we're aware of who was involved in it, and we are after them at the moment. Yeah, so they should soon be in custody. Yeah.
All right, I think that was Roxroy's only question. Thank you,
Right, thank you so much. Thanks for that.
Really appreciate it. Mr. Prime Minister?
I thought you said you had two.
One more. Yes, I'm sorry. Edmund Campbell then as well. Edmund, good morning. Happy Father's Day to you. Just knock that in. We give the father the last word then in terms of question. Unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. Morning, Prime Minister. Morning, everyone. Just a few questions, Prime Minister. Well, first of all, what kind of funding is being earmarked to carry out the social intervention in Norwood? And if you could give us a timeline when you expect to see some significant measure of transformation in that community. And Prime Minister, just two very quick questions on our vaccines, or efforts to obtain it. The government had set a March 2022 deadline for approximately, I think, about 65% of Jamaicans to be vaccinated. The Economist had described this target as overly ambitious sometime in April. Now, can you tell us what percentage of the population is fully vaccinated to date, and has the March 22 target, has that target been adjusted? And finally, has the Jamaican government engaged its U.S. counterpart in bilateral talks to ascertain how much of the promised vaccines would be given to Jamaica, and if not, why not? Thank you.
All right, I'm going to ask Minister Chang to give you the details on the spending and the projections for transformation of the Norwood community. But suffice to say that Norwood has been the beneficiary of significant resources over the years to improve the physical condition of the community. As it relates to vaccines, I'm not aware that we have adjusted the target date of 65 to 70% of the population achieving herd immunity by March next year. However, there is no question that our plans would have been set back by the delays in receiving vaccines. What I can say to you is that from a fiscal standpoint, meaning from the allocation of resources from the national budget, that we have the resources available set aside to purchase vaccines. The issue is one of availability. So we welcome the announcement by President Biden of the United States initiative, and by the G7 as well, to provide vaccines to COVAX and other entities and bilaterally to countries directly. That should significantly ease the shortages that we are experiencing. We also note that Jamaica received an allocation of 75,000 doses a few months ago, or a month or so ago, and we were able to deploy that in rapid order. So that also speaks as well to our ability to still meet that target deadline, because we have demonstrated that we have the capacity to properly deploy and administer vaccines. And we could indeed even ramp that up even further. So I would still want to think that we should be able to maintain that if we go with the intensity that we have displayed in deploying 75,000 doses over a few days. And we could scale that up rapidly and easily. We have had contact with the United States. Our Minister of Foreign Affairs is in constant dialogue and contact, and we are hopeful that we should hear some positive news early next month. Minister.
Thank you for the question, Edmund. The zones of special operation activity goes over a medium-term period, and it's not just in any 1 year. We have declared today, and while they have been planning going on, the Social Investment Committee will meet soon, and we play a coordinating role as the Ministry of National Security to ensure the interministerial coordination is carried out and the expenses that are associated with each ministry is identified and executed in sync with all the other ministries. So I'd rather await the first report to Parliament, which is 60 days into Parliament to indicate to you the budget for this rest of this financial year, and then going forward the plans as outlined by the Social Investment Committee, because that aspect of it, the security aspect, is within the chiefs and routine expenditure in the security forces, but the men are redeployed in the areas in greater numbers, and the operational costs are established within the security budget. But the actual expenditure in the social investment side, I'd rather allow to be brought to the reports of Parliament, as the Social Investment Committee, which is a part of the operation, it takes a look at what should be prioritized during this time. There's a global picture without, I don't want to give it that at this point in time, as it goes over time. Just in closing, remember, we're looking at building an entire new police facility in Montego Hills nearby. That will not be part of this particular budget at this point in time.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister Dr. Horace Chang. And may I then thank the Prime Minister, the Most Honourable Andrew Holness, for hosting this media conference this morning, along with the Deputy Prime Minister, the Honourable Dr. Horace Chang, the Attorney General, the Honourable Marlene Malahoo Fort, Major General Anthony Anderson, the Commissioner of Police, Commodore Antoinette Rees-Gorman, Acting Chief of Defence Staff, and of course our Permanent Secretary here at the Office of the Prime Minister, Mrs. Audrey Sewell. I thank everyone for tuning in, and please do enjoy the rest of Father's Day. Good morning.